So you've been on a winter walk and you've discovered some silver birch twigs on the ground, and you've taken them home and you want an idea to how to use them creatively in your next flower arrangement. I'm Julie Davis from Julie Davis Flower Workshops and Flowers Start, the online flower arranging classes, and I've got a great idea for how you could use your silver birch twigs next time you're out and about. Now, my top tip here is to actually go and look for your silver birch twigs after a storm. You'll find that they come away from the trees really easily in the wind, and it's a great way of just being able to pick up bits and pieces that have fallen to the ground rather than having to cut direct from the tree. And when they're freshly blown down, they'll have some pliability in them. But if you pick your sticks up when they're quite old, you'll find that the stubby ends, were a bit thicker, get really, really stiff. Now I'm going to use these stiff ends of the twigs to create a grid that I can use in my flower arranging. So I've got a pot here, and I've also got some twigs, and what I'm going to do to give you the idea is that by laying them across the top of the pot and then going back the other way, I can create a grid to arrange my flowers through. So what I've started off with was one of my twigs, and you need to aim for as straight a branch as you can and cut off the side sections. And one thing I would suggest you do, I know it sounds silly, but just to make sure that before you start trimming your twigs, you actually make sure they're long enough to go across the top of your pot. The first lot of twigs I cut were too short, which is rather silly. So we can get rid of that pot now, because I know they're all going to be the right size, and lay them out on the front. So it's a bit like if you were playing noughts and crosses. You can make the grid as small as you like, or you might feel that you want to go 3 in each direction, and you could even come out again, enclosing the whole lot in another rim of twigs. So it's entirely up to you. And then the technique for tying the twigs together, I like to use this bind wire from Oasis that you can get online, and it's paper covered wire. And what I do is cut it up into shortish lengths, probably about 10 centimetres long. I go through and cut those. And then when I start to make my grid, you have to start somewhere. So whatever 2 pieces, I'm going to aim for the middle. I'm just going to check that. So it was 3 at the top, 3 across. So I'm actually going to start at the top. So laying 2 pieces together, and the best way, whatever the easiest way you find for connecting those pieces. So I'm going over the edge, and then because it's this paper covered wire, I just need to twist. So I don't need to tie knots, but if all you had at home was string, you could do exactly the same thing, but with string. So holding them together, and then you'll find that the more twigs you add in, the more robust your construction becomes. And the only thing I would say is, if you're planning to reuse this grid over and over again, you need to make sure that when you do the twisting to tie, that you're really, really secure with it. If you're using fresh branches, they'll dry out over time and shrink, and they'll just slide out. So you do need to make sure it's reasonably firm. But if you're just doing it for fun for now, you don't intend keeping it, well, you can get away with not having everything so tight, but it only takes a couple of seconds to tug on the ends and keep everything secure. As you can see, this one here is a bit wobbly, so I'm going to turn that over and really, really try and pull that one much tighter. Back to the front again. Again, that one wasn't very tight either. Not having much luck there, so turn that over. So, it's just trial and error, and of course when you'll be making this at home, you'll have more time to secure what you're doing. And you won't be working over a camera, which will make things slightly easier for you. So next one. If you're really precise when you work, you might want to measure out the distances between the twigs or eye it up. It's entirely up to you, whatever is your preferred style of working, but it does become easier, I will say, when you've got more twigs in, and it really starts to hold up a bit better. So you need to, a lot of things we do in flower arranging is persevere. So you can see now I've finished, it is much more secure, and you can imagine if you wanted to add in more twigs around the edge, you could just keep going for as long as you wanted to go. And then it's a matter then placing your twigs back over your container, and you'll see that it's never going to be totally flat. This is sort of like creating a natural grid over your flowers. One thing you need to think about is these little tied edges, whether you want to keep them on as part of your decoration. You might even want to turn your grid up and have these on as part of your decoration, or whether you want to snip them off and be really neat. So I'm going to snip mine off. So it can sit on the edge of the pot like that, and then I would come along, and where I thought they were, I can trim the stems down so they become more manageable. So I'm designing this so that the stems will be visible. I want to show off my twigs. You need to have a little bit of an overhang so it rests on the pot, and then you would come through and start to arrange your flowers in. So when you've finished your grid, you lay it on the pot, chop it down to size so it doesn't stick out too far, but you will need a bit of an overhang, and then you can use that to arrange your flowers and greenery. And just by letting them stand up and having this very natural grid effect, which is useful because it keeps your plant materials upright, but also it's very natural, so any part of it that shows is all part of the overall finish, and you would just continue arranging your flowers like that. And because it is natural, you don't even need to fill in all the grids. If you felt that you wanted to show off the construction that you've made, you could include that as part of as much or as little as you want to inside your container, and show off the workings as part of a unique part of your own crafted flower arrangement. So I hope you've enjoyed that, and I shall see you another time.